Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to yet another edition of the Mario and Chaos Show. My favorite episode of all time, episode number 69.
Favorite number
2. I'm your co-host, Mario Mancini. I'm a former WWE wrestler and co-instructor at Paradise Alley Professional Wrestling, along with a man that can bend steel in his bare hands, Paul Roma, Big Steve Tracy, and the 2020-something inductee into the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, COVID-19 handicapped. No ceremony, which would have been this past weekend, Mr. Paul Perez.
It's all good. It's all good.
Seated somewhere in our Hollywood squares is a man that does everything from soup to nuts in this wrestling business. The emphasis is on the nuts. And that would be the one and the only guardian of chaos, Big Daddy. Big Daddy, what's going on?
We have a very, very special guest tonight, fans. Mario Mancini's favorite episodes out of all episodes we've done. We are in episode 69, season 2 of the Mario and Chaos Show. Mancini, thanks for getting us back together. Paul Perez, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to produce our show. And Perez, you look tremendous. Mancini, I'm going to say this, and I say it every week, and I ask it every week. How is the diet going? Because you look tremendous, and I know you're in training.
Well, the diet is on spot. In fact, I got a compliment today from somebody that hasn't seen me in a while, and they said, you lost weight. And I said, yeah, and I'm September 1st, that's my goal. So everything's going well. I just had some chicken breast with a family-sized can of spinach. I love canned spinach. So I put a little apple cider vinegar on that thing. You're good to go. Yes, Big Daddy's episode 69. I wasn't going to call it my favorite episode, but I confirmed it with Cheryl, and she said, it is, above all, the number. And I said, okay, because she is the guru. So I go to her for, her blessings, if you will. Big Daddy, today we have a 20-year ring veteran as a guest, a very charismatic wrestler, a very passionate wrestler, a very good human being. He's a friend of yours, a friend of Perez. He's a friend of mine. That would be PAPW's Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion, the Beast of the East, Bull Dredd. Dredd, what's going on?
Welcome aboard,
Hey.
Dredd.
Hey, this has been a long time coming. I mean, I'd rather be in person, but you know what? Being surrounded by you guys, it's it's a pleasure for me. I just love being on. Finally, I get to speak the truth.
Well, listen, there's nothing better right now than the Paradise Alley Professional Wrestling Intercontinental Champion, the hardcore legend, the Beast of New England. And that would be my brother from another mother. There is no other Bull Dredd. And Dredd, thank you for being here on the Mario and Chaos Show. And to get things started right from the rip, Mario, I want to bring up this one connection. And I'm going to go off the rails here right to begin with, because I want to talk about the legendary chance we were in the ring together in a 10-man barbed wire weapons match, along with the likes of Balls Mahoney, God rest his soul, 187 homicide, Rocket Fred Curry, third generation grappler. The list goes on and on. Low life Louis Ramos, Kurt Adonis, the hippie freak, the legend from here in Connecticut, Ron Zombie. I want you to break down that match before we get on to your Paradise Alley career, and then we have a lot of information here on the Mario and Chaos show. That was one hell of a night, Dredd, and we bled all night long.
I could tell you this. I didn't know until years later how important that night was, because that night pretty much solidified who I am as who I am in Connecticut wrestling, all up and down the East Coast. And it's true, one night could change a person's career. And I went from being a first match on the card to main eventing and the top guy in New England in just that one night.
Well, that night, if you remember correctly, Dredd, I'm sorry to cut you off because I want to throw it back in there. That night, if you remember correctly, also in that match was the student and the teacher, because your trainer, Jason fucking Knight, the sexiest man alive, ECW hardcore legend. There were thumbtacks that night, fire, garbage pails, barbed wire, baseball bats. And you're right, that match was historic. And in that match was your trainer, Dredd.
Yes. We lost somebody there.
Oh, hold on.
He'll be back.
Mancini had to take the Browns to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, Jason and I ended up being, the heart of Jason. I was one of his top students, and we ended up later on feuding. But that night, what it did to me was, as what you call the hardcore legend. I mean, I never thought in a million years I would ever be called that. I mean, the fans gave me that name. I'd never called myself that. So truly, the fans have given me that. But it kind of reflects on the hard work I put in, and I have no shame whatsoever. I regret nothing, because I am where I am because of basically of my humble beginnings and that night.
What are your thoughts from that night? What do you remember from the multi-stars that were in the ring with you, to myself, truly, who you busted open at least twice? And earlier in that night, if I'm not mistaken, Dredd, you had put 2 staples in your head. You came out as a bloody mess because you were assaulted. Break down what happened earlier that night. That's when Jason Knight had the big ECW connection, because that was a critical night where you lost a lot of blood that night, Dredd.
Oh, yeah. I ended up bleeding a lot more than I really expected. But like I said, I didn't, I'm trying to bring myself back. And Mario, I'm sure you and Paul, you guys probably understand this, is until you could bring yourself back to that time, to something you experienced, you didn't know what was happening until years later what it meant something.
Yeah. Yeah, Bull,
the
biggest example of that I've been asked was when you were Taker's debut match, did you know he was going to be as big as he was going to become, and did you know he was going to last 30 years? Well, hell no, I didn't. I was Big Bully Busick's debut match too. He lasted probably around 4 months. No, I didn't know, and you don't realize it until you look back. And I really didn't think about it for years until I got involved with Paradise Alley, and people started naming off the debut matches that I had of people. I never even really thought about it. So you're right. You really don't know, especially being in 8 months before WrestleMania and watching all that unfold. You're just there in the moment. You're not thinking, wow, what am I going to think about this 20 years from now? So you're absolutely correct.
I mean, with some of you, even with your current students, and when I made my debut with PAPW, and I had people, fans, guys that just started training at the school, come up to me. I'm like, yeah, we're glad you're here. I remember coming to see you at NEW in Waterbury or Crosby, or we're somewhere in New York. And I'm like, wow. It's like, when did the young kid become the veteran now, but to me, it's like, just to be remembered, and I know you feel this, I know you guys feel this, just to be remembered, to me, that's a pleasure. It just solidifies that this is what I'm supposed to be doing in life, and the fans made me a star. I never looked at me as a star. The fans made me a star.
Yeah, well, as owners of Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling, standing there with Roma on the first night you ever came out for Paradise Alley, and when I say they popped, I mean that crowd popped. And I just looked over at Roma and I grinned. I go, "You see that? Do you see that?"
Well, let's take fans up to speed. Let's take fans up to speed, Dredd. You're talking about your debut at Paradise Alley Professional Wrestling. You're talking about we are in episode 69, season 2. We said that we are in mid-July. It was almost to the day 1 year ago that Bull Dredd stepped into the Paradise Alley Professional Wrestling ring, and that was at Feast or Famine. Feast, not Famine, the incredible nonprofit that we worked for the East Haven Food Pantry that night, Mancini. And that's when Dredd walked into the most dangerous arena in the Northeast, and that would be the DeLongo Memorial Hockey Rink. I remember that 1 year to the day, Dredd.
Yeah. It's amazing how a year passes, because I look back at last year at this time, and I'm like, I was sitting on the couch, and I'm like, I can't take this anymore. I want to be out there performing. I need to have fun, and, where's my career going? And I made one call, and I know for the past few years before that, where I wanted to come to PAPW, but something was holding me back, and that was called loyalty. And until I realized that loyalty means nothing to some people, especially that's what's kind of lost. I feel that in this business, loyalty, respect. If this is indie wrestling is based on loyalty, and we're not under contracts. This is not WWE. So it's like you should be able to be free to work wherever you want without being, hassled and bullied or feel like you're being disloyal. I was like, you know what? I want to have fun for the remainder of my career. And I was looking to be 20 years, and I think I'm going to hang it up. You know what? You know what my new goal is going to be, since we're talking about celebrating 20 years almost? 25.
5 more years. 5 more years. 5 more years.
So what I like to say is that, you know what? NEW was a great time of my career. I'm not going to say never, but I'm happy where I am. And honestly, I'll be happy if I were to end my career tomorrow, and I would do it in PAPW. You know how I would do it? All my fans from fucking Waterbury will come to New Haven or the Annex building, and that's where they're going to come and see me. That's how I feel right now, because I feel so disrespected, and I feel that loyalty is gone, So
Mario, as the owner of Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling and someone who worked for Vince McMahon for damn near 10 years, and Paul Perez can get on this too, what are your thoughts as part of the Paradise 4 and the sole owner of Paradise Alley about this whole politics, even in the independent professional wrestling scene, of not working for this company, working for that company, creative control, who does the booking, how you represent one company to another? Can you speak to what Bull Dredd is talking about as the owner of Paradise Alley?
Well, I tell you what, Big Daddy, I have so much to say. So strap yourself in and just enjoy the ride, because you know what? Dredd and I aren't as fortunate as you and Perez. So we're gentlemen, and Dredd is definitely one of the gentlemen inside and outside the ring. And we're Italian Americans, and we know how to honor the women that we love, and we know how to, treat them, yet we sit alone.
Well, he was the sexy beast. Man, Bull Dredd was the sexy beast.
Yeah, but that being said, Dredd and I sit there and shrug our shoulders and go, one woman's trash is another woman's treasure. So the same thing applies here. I have a 20-year ring veteran, okay? A 21 ring veteran getting shunned by another independent pro wrestling company. Independent pro wrestling. There's only one Vince McMahon. There's only one, not two.
We're going to jump through the Zoom lens, Mancini.
All right. Well, because this person claims his company's on an independent company. Your ass. You're an independent wrestling company. So He turns away a 20-year ring veteran who will do nothing but walk into any dressing room in the country and make it better. Mentor the younger wrestlers, teach them things. Not only that, professionally comes through the curtain and gets a pop. He knows the psychology in the ring. He knows what he's doing.
Well, he's got a fan base.
And here's the biggest part. Bull Dredd will walk into any company, shake that promoter's hand and say, hey, I'm here for your company. I'm not here for me. I'm here for the wrestling business as a whole, and I'm here to make your company better any way I can do that. It's not about him. He doesn't make it about him. And he is the last of the Mohegans, because that is truly what a pro is. That's how we were raised in the WWF. You know what I mean? Vince McMahon coming up to me going, will you take a pile driver from Orndorff on the concrete floor? Did I want to look at him and go, no, Vince, I don't want to do that. Personally, I don't want to take that chance. But you know what? It was for the WWF and for the company. So I said, I'd be more than happy to do it. You know what I mean? So this is what kind of caliber you have walking into Paradise Professional Wrestling. And you know, Dredd calls me up and he says, hey, Mario, I said, I opened both arms and said, oh, my God, come on down. We'll take you in a minute. We'll take you in a minute. Not only did we take him in a minute, we made him a champion. We gave him the respect and the recognition for his career, the man that he is, and what he should have. You know what I mean? Because he's paid his dues. And he's there. And what I love about Dredd is he'll look at somebody and he doesn't give a shit whether it's in a trailer, whether it's outside on the grass,
in somebody's backyard.
He'll look at a rookie and go, "Hey, don't do that. You don't do that." You know what I mean? And I can't be there to do that. Roma can't be there to do that. You know what I mean? You can't be there to do that. You know, Perez is running the production. We need somebody very similar to us back there in order to do that, and that's Bull Dredd. You have to be out of your fucking mind not to have this guy a part of your company. You have to be out of your fucking mind.
Well, I'm
going to speak to this. Hold on, Dredd. I'm going to speak to this with what Mario's talking about, because he makes valid points about what Perez, Roma, Mario, and Big Dave Paradise, Steve Tracy do down at Paradise Alley with the assistance of several veterans, whether it be your Chris Battles or yourself, Bull Dredd. You were taught, because I was there as a veteran at that time back in 2000, 2001, when you were there being trained by a guy who was already in WCW and ECW. I'm going to bring it all the way back to your trainings at the House of Pain Pro Wrestling Dojo with the sexiest man alive, ECW's Jason Knight, and the people that were also back in there, from Zombie to Dylan Cage to Mercedes Martinez, who is now in NXT, to Velvet Sky, who was in the NWA and TNA, who's married to Bully Ray. A lot of connections and people that came through that House of Pain Pro Wrestling Dojo. Dredd, speak to your humble beginnings, and maybe that's where you, Mario, myself, Perez, I already know where you began and why you are the true professional that you are.
I think probably one of the connections, right away with Jason and I, is Jason is Serbian. And he's not, obviously he's from another country. So I think him knowing that, I come from immigrant parents, he kind of knew the way I was raised. But the thing is this is like what Mario said, being an Italian American and kind of having my parents come here with nothing, from another country, kind of taught me to work hard. They taught me the ethics of working hard. And I applied all that to everything that I've done in my life, especially, work. And I started working at a young age, at 13 years old. But I applied all that to training and the wrestling. And I started late in life. I started when I was 25. But you know what? I applied all my ethics of hard work, and it's there was no giving up. It's when you're in love with something, you want to accomplish something, you go at it. And the more you accomplish, the harder you got to work. And it wasn't easy. I think a lot of the schools today that thing, they open up a school, a fly-by-night, boom, after a couple of weeks, they're putting guys in the ring. They're teaching them moves. They're not teaching them old school ethics of the hard work and the groundwork. I love, the psychology came later, but the basics. It's like a Derek Jeter. You think he became great by hitting home runs? No, he worked at his basics and became a great shortstop. Taking ground balls. That's how you become a great baseball player. But the same thing with wrestling. You got to learn how to work. That's the basics. You can do all them fucking moves you want, but if you don't learn how to work and make things mean something, I kind of started looking at wrestling like this now. Wrestling has lost the storytelling and has become like baseball, basketball, and football now, and hockey. It's like who can one up each other. To me, I'm based old school, and I like to tell the story of becoming. I could go from being the most loved guy in the beginning of the match to the most hated. And that's what you want. And that's what I was taught. And that's what I try to teach the guys that when I walked into PAPW, I even pulled a couple guys aside. I'm like, why would you do that? In the beginning of one of the matches. And I'm like, that's who I became now. But the humble beginnings is Jason busted our fucking ass.
Oh, he certainly did.
Had to see if you had the heart. You had to see if you have the heart to do this because, granted, I worked my first match after a couple of weeks, but you know what? Jason said, I didn't know how to kick and punch. Me and Pat Gunner at the time, you guys know him as Joseph Von Schmidt, but we looked at each other, we got in the ring, we kicked and punched. Next thing you know, we're on the next show. So,
well, pro wrestling is not a competition. To your point, Dredd, that's a very valid point, and that's what Mario and Roma teach. It's not a competition. It's a story. It's an art form. It's a performance. It's not like the MLB or NBA or NFL where you need an end result. It's about the story. And I want to go back, and I'm going to say these to you, Dredd, as the current Intercontinental Champion for Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling. I'm going to run down a couple of your accomplishments here before we get on to your current professional career in Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling. And I could speak to Jason Knight in the House of Pain dojo. It was as rough. Well, maybe not as rough as what Mario did back in the 80s, but it was standard, and you survived.
Yeah.
Big Daddy.
Credentials.
Big Daddy.
Go ahead, sir.
How much longer am I going to have to feel bad about you walking into Passarella's Quest and me putting you through what you went through? Never.
It wasn't your fault. It was my fault. Really? You're going to ask that question on national air?
You didn't tell me 36 years ago that you had a broken back.
I'm not going to tell. Well, that's not the point. I wasn't going to tell you. And I don't hold you responsible. I hold myself responsible because I should have made it through the training, injury or not. You were the one that made me realize and wake up. So that's a compliment of me paying homage to you, of waking me up to the reality of not being able to cut the mustard. No injuries. That's not a fucking excuse. And I don't hold you responsible. But let's get off that subject. We're here to talk about the champ. Dredd.
Yes.
ACW Hardcore Champion. ACW Great American Champion as you defeated Jeff Rocker. DPW Tag Team Champions with Pat Gunner, the Dreaded Guns. You were the first part of the first NEW Tag Team Champions with my good buddy Ron Zombie. One night only, you were part of the New World Order with Kevin Nash. Can you speak to those career highlights, Bull Dredd?
Like I said, looking back, how much that meant, at the time.
Too sweet.
When I tagged with Kevin, when I tagged with Kevin Nash, I was well into, into a decade in my career by then. I knew I had the biggest spot of the night because I got a bigger pop than Kevin Nash. And you know what? It's on YouTube to prove it. And there was a signing that day at Ken's Cards, and I had to keep it hush. But I got the call from Joey Bricco, during the week, and he asked me if I was available, and I go, yeah. And it ended up being a great moment in my career. Just honestly, the match is a wrestling match is a wrestling match. But honestly, the biggest part of that night, that match to me was the entrance. because to me it just solidified being the mystery partner, you know, being a special partner. It kind of just, wow, it's like it wowed the people, and that's what you want. But everything else, I mean, yeah, I mean, everything happened, and it solidified who I am today in my career. You know, it individually meant something different, but that's how I've evolved as a performer. You know, being the ACW Hardcore Champion, the Great American Champion. Honestly, what it proves is that I'm not just hardcore. I can wrestle. I mean, that's what that means, you know. Than being
it's singles and tag team too, Dredd. You were also multi-tag team champions. I want to talk about a night that I believe Mario was there also. We were talking about a pre-podcast. Mario was talking about the legendary from Escape from New York, God rest his soul, and that would be Ox Baker. I want to talk to the night, Dredd, where you became the first PWA Ox Baker champion, and I believe, Mario, you were there that night, if I'm not mistaken.
I might have been. I don't know. I can't remember.
The story about Ox Baker that you told pre-podcast, if you could relay that again, and then I want to talk
that was the first night. That was the first night I met the Fogman. That was the first night I met the Fogman. So me, Dredd, Ox Baker, I don't know who else was there, but we had a round table, so to speak. We were all sitting in as a group, being interviewed by, I think it was Trivia. Mr.
I believe
Trivia.
You're correct.
And Fog was there, and we were taking, I'll never forget, it was Fog's birthday, and I didn't know him from Adam, and the fans kept calling, going, is the Fog Man there? Is the Fog Man there? And I looked at him and I said, are you the Fog Man?
Ma, where's the meatloaf?
And he said, yeah. I said, well, maybe you want to sit here and I'll stand where you are because everybody's calling for you. But, you know, that's the first night. That's the first night I met Dredd too. You know, we did a talk show, albeit it was the Ox Baker talk show, and God bless him. I'm glad it was. But yeah, that was the first night I met Dredd, and we had that talk show. But Big Daddy, I didn't do my part two, so I want to do my part two. So my part two is this, Big Daddy. If you take my talent and you treat them with respect, I don't care if they have to do a job for your organization. Everybody does jobs. But as long as you treat them with respect, you know, anybody's able to wrestle anywhere. I trust 99% of independent wrestling companies to use my talent. Jose is at XWA is wonderful to the PAPW guys. He treats them like family. Got very close to Holiday. You know, he uses Flash Waller. You know, he's very good to our guys. And that's the way the wrestling business should be. You should be able to intertwine and intermingle talent. And you know, Rome and I have a philosophy. You know, well, whoever's telling you you can't work for that company, are they giving you money to sit home? No. Well, then go work. So 99%, as long as they use PAPW people with respect, and that doesn't mean they got to go over. That means with respect. Then they should be able to work wherever they want to. 99% of them. The 1% I will not let anyone go to is NEW, because he has no respect for anyone. So I remember when I met him for the first time, and I was looking down talking to him, and he said, he said,
here it comes.
He said, except for your champions, treat your wrestlers like cattle. I said, what? He said, treat them like cattle, man. They're all replaceable. Every one of them except your.
Now, this is a quote from who, Mancini? This is a quote from who? You don't have to say names. You could say companies. I didn't hear that.
Anybody who's really involved with independent pro wrestling and doesn't know a wrestling promoter who's 4'11", then they don't know independent pro wrestling. What can I tell you?
Not in this area, anyways.
Right.
You want to know
So,
something?
I don't
Chris
know.
is a man of few words.
You want to know what I was feeling, Mario? I mean, and you guys, this is what I was feeling towards my end of time there. I started feeling like I was an obligation, almost like every time they would run water, they were like, "Oh man, we got to put Dredd on," you know.
Well,
And
you put
towards the
asses in
end,
seats, that's for sure. You put asses in seats.
Well, Dredd, you know, another $300 in ticket sales or $400. You know, hell yeah, but then let you sit home for 5 months? That's bullshit. Bullshit.
Well, like the way I
Bullshit.
looked at it is this: it's like people wanted to see me, but they weren't paying to see me. So I'm like, you know what? Like I said, I started feeling like a second thought, and I'm like, to me, it's a slap in the face to run in my hometown and literally 5-minute walk from where I live and not call me up. I find that very disrespectful, and I felt really let down. But I promised myself not to be bitter, and I promised myself to move on, and it's a part of my career where I shut the door. I'm just happy where I am.
You know, I have to say this. I have to give credit where credit's due. And I've criticized this person, Lord knows, personally.
No.
Because this person is such a wrestling fan. Probably the biggest, and I've been in wrestling for, if you count wrestling school, 37 years. Probably have never met a bigger wrestling fan, to the point where I was briefly dating this woman, and she asked me to sign her encyclopedia. That's how big of a wrestling fan she is. But, you know, I have to give respect where it's due. Not only is she a wrestling fan, though, she's extremely knowledgeable, and she's very smart, and she understands the business. And I was putting together that May 9th show, and I was looking for a hardcore match. Right? I was taking PAPW for one show at the JCC before COVID in a total different direction. I had an 8-woman over-the-top rope battle royal. I had a hardcore match coming in. I had a lucha match coming in. I had little people coming in. It was going to be called PAPW Hardcore. And the first name, she said, you cannot have a hardcore match and not put Bull Dredd in it. He is the epitome of hardcore. And I said, okay, you got it. We'll put Dredd in. You have to put him in. You know, so this is a woman that has season tickets for NEW. She was bored one summer day, and Fogg said to her, "Hey, why don't you come to the Taco Fest in North Haven and check out PAPW?" And she came out and she checked out PAPW, and she's been in the front row with her friends ever since that show. She's been to every single show in the front row. And you know what? It's no secret. She likes my PAPW guys. But when Bull Dredd comes out, she perks up a little bit because she's watched Bull Dredd for years.
Well, listen, PAPW is a much-needed, viable alternative in the pro wrestling world, especially here in Connecticut, okay, in the historic location of the old WWF territory. So, Mancini, that is a very valid point of what you talk about between fans and promotions and companies, and I'm glad you wrapped up that second part because it's true to what you're saying. I want to ask Dredd this. You've teamed, we already talked about your legendary night in the New World Order with Kevin Nash. Now, you also had a chance to team with a couple of big stars like Jerry the King Lawler and Hacksaw Jim Duggan. I want to ask you about your experiences of tagging with such big stars, and then I want to throw out this one name and address it, a personal friend of ours, Ron Zombie, who you also tag team with and were champions. Address those names, especially Zombie.
Well, I'm going to go back. I remember when I was tagging with Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and I know Mario, you and Paul, you guys have had a lot of history with them, you know, in the same locker room. I remember Lombardi saying to me, "Don't mark out," you know, and I was like, okay. But, you know, meeting Duggan that night when I first teamed with him, it was like I've known him for years. It's just like amazing how like you go from watching.
Well, it's a pretty insulting compliment. Pretty insulting.
That is tremendously insulting. You know, Bull. I'll admit to you. And it's a different situation. I started watching pro wrestling in 1973 when I was 7. By the time I was 14 in 1980, I told my whole family I'm going to wrestle for the WWF back then. I said, I'm going to be a pro wrestler. At the age of 14, I said it. And I have to say as well, Bull, you would have acted the same way. When I went to Poughkeepsie on July 31st, and, my 36th year anniversary is coming up, and I sat there in the dressing room, and, Bruno came down with his yellow jacket on. He was doing the color commentary with Vince McMahon. I was frozen. I was absolutely frozen because he was the reason why I was there. Bruno was the only reason why I was there. So I was frozen. Watching Hogan and watching all these guys walk around that I was watching on TV last year, it was a little overwhelming. But after 6 months, they were just other people. After 6 months in the business, they were just other people. You know what I mean? So, to tell a veteran, for one person not to mark out who's a grown man. I mean, I was only 18 years old, and I just turned 18 6 weeks before I turned pro. So to tell a grown man not to mark out is absolutely insulting. Absolutely.
Especially a man of Bull Dredd's ilk who was already a veteran at that point. But so I find that to be highly insulting coming from a promoter to a veteran, even to a young guy. Don't mark out. You don't talk to your talent. And to your point, Mario, of what you said of how this person says, treat your talent like cattle. I mean, you can see the mindset. I'm not here to speak out against anyone. I tell it like it is. But I'll say that to say this. Dredd, your experiences with our old friend, the hardcore legend himself, can you speak to your friendship, your tag team championship, and in the business with a gentleman we all know well, and that would be Ron Zombie?
Well, Zombie, I mean, you all know, I mean, he's my mentor. I mean, he was there since my first day of training. I actually met Zombie a couple years before I actually got in the ring and was talking to him. And, my first night at Jason's school, he was there. I mean, we developed a great friendship. We come from this background, Italian-American. And we've feuded, we've tagged, and he's just somebody that we all have somebody that we go to as our mentor with any issues, and they guide you. And he was one of the guys, and it's still to this day. And, and I saw him, the last time I saw him was the night before the real lockdown, when all pandemic, it was a few months ago. He was at the bar, and I surprised him, and, we talked about the business, and, he's somebody, like I said, somebody I could go to, and somebody that's a veteran, and I will go to him for any advice. It's like I will go to you, Mario, Paul, Steve. I mean, that's just the way it is, and just how some of the guys are coming to me now. That's the friendship. I mean, I would do anything he would ask me.
Well, those are excellent words from Zombie. Speaking of Paul Roma, I just want to throw this out there quick, fans, because episode 1 was unbelievable, and he's coming up every Wednesday night from 7 to 8 o'clock. You can hear the head trainer from Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling, and that would be with Avi Klein on Maintaining the Truth. Now, fans, if the rest of the episodes are like anything else that Roma and Avi Klein put out last Wednesday, go to Twitch, go to Facebook Live. He also has Don Morocco on every week on The Wave with Don Morocco. It was an unbelievable interview. Paul Roma with Avi Klein, Wednesday nights, Facebook and Twitch, Maintaining the Truth. So I'm glad you brought that up, Dredd. What I want to talk about next, and Mario knows and Paul knows most of these gentlemen that I'm going to talk about because they've shared locker rooms with these people, as have I, and they've been in the ring. Dredd, you've been in the same locker room with the likes of Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair and Roddy Piper and Mean Gene Okerlund and as we said, Kevin Nash, Bret Hart, Mick Foley, Tommy Dreamer, Ron Simmons, Marty Jannetty. Can you speak to the talent, Mancini, that Dredd has associated himself through his 20-year career and all those names?
Basically, the same career that Perez and I had, only in a different time in a different company, basically.
I mean, pretty impressive. Perez, can you speak to some of those names, like Mario just said? Dredd has been in the locker room or in the ring with a lot of guys that you guys have also been in the same ring with.
Yeah, so we kind of like worked against each other by proxy, you know?
Hey, don't forget.
Perez, didn't you work with Dusty?
Yes, I did.
Yeah,
Yes, I did.
that's a big one.
Now, Perez, speaking of that, how many times did you work with Dusty, and what were your biggest remembrances of working with Rhodes, Perez? Because I find that fascinating.
I only worked with him once, but the thing was, when he came to talk over our match, it was like an hour before the match, and we talked for like 30 minutes right by the curtain until it was time for me to go in. You know, so I learned a lot in that 30 minutes, you know. You just ask questions and open your ears, you know.
Well, that's a tremendous thing, Perez. I'm so blessed to have worked with the American Dream. Now, before we get back to Dredd, Mario, I want to bring you back in because it's in regards to other promoters and people that your talent and your company worked for, because it's an annual tradition. This year it didn't happen, but 1 year ago this weekend, Mancini, is the annual trip down to Brian Costello's IAW. And I briefly want to talk about last year's trip where Mancini, we're going to run down the matchups. The House of Pain went up against Bob Orton Jr. and Brian Costello. Yourself against Pastor Payne. Roma for the dual titles against Brian Costello. And obviously Zachariah Gibbs was down there for the Brass Knuckles Championship. Showtime Marcel Williams had a non-title event against Cosmo. And then, of course, Mancini, let's not forget about Ref Bill fucking up the whole trip and not stopping at the House of Pancakes. Can you talk about the IAW and Brian Costello?
It was Waffle House.
Waffle House. Well, you know what Bully Ray says. You know what Bully Ray says to me.
Yeah, the Waffle House. I say one thing. I love Costello. Costello, I love Brian Costello is like, well, you know, you're in the dressing room with him, and you know what? You get to relive your days in the WWF because he is just you're one of the boys, and he's got that sparkle in his eye and that shit-eating grin, and he's just a great guy, man. He's just a fantastic individual. I love Brian. You know, he's always very calm. You know, he's running the whole deal. We're in a stadium, the single-A stadium for Chicago Cubs in South Bend, Indiana. And, he runs a class act. He's got great food in the dressing room. And, you know, working for him is just a pleasure. It's just a real pleasure. He's just such a fantastic person. And the dressing room is always good. And, you know, I miss Andy because Andy reminds me of the Kurt Hennig and the Jose Luis Rivera. I used to hang out within the dressing room because Rivera would have me in stitches all the time. And believe it or not, I going to Indiana, I look forward to seeing Andy because I know I'm going to laugh my ass off because he'll in his bag, he'll have a picture of Guy Fieri, right? And Costello will walk in with the same haircut. He'll hold up a picture, and son of a bitch, if they don't look like twins, right? But there's one thing that makes Costello hot. He doesn't like that. So,
well, that's why I had to bring it up, Mancini. I had to bring up the IAW because I hope we get back there in 2021. But that's 1 year ago. We miss it. Costello, the boys miss you. I want to quickly, first off, let me give a big shout out, fans. Go out to sweetheal.com for all your CBD needs. My good friend, Mr. Hempel-Stilskin, sweetheal.com. I couldn't live without it, fans. But this is what I want to talk about. We got about 15 minutes left on the show. I want to bring back our Intercontinental Champion, and I want to talk about some of the matches. Dredd, Mario, Paul, I'm going to run down your matches, and I want you to tell me what stuck out. We all know that you made your debut at Feast Not Famine against the flamboyant one, Kenny Roberts. That was 1 year ago. to this month. Your second matchup, and I want to talk to you about this because Mario was in the same match. That would be Rumble in Paradise 2 when you guys were in the Battle Royal to get the shot at the Dieselmania 4 title. Can you talk about being in the Battle Royal with Mancini at Rumble in Paradise, Dredd? Your second match in PAPW.
Yeah, I mean, being in the ring with talent that I have never been in the ring with is it felt good to me. But I think Mario, what did I say to you when you got in the ring and I was hammering on you? I was like, wow, we're in the ring together.
Yeah.
Legendary.
What do you remember from that night, Mancini?
You know what? That was the most fun I had because I wanted to work with Dredd, and that was the most fun I had getting pounded by Dredd. It was fun.
That didn't sound right, Mancini.
Yeah, it didn't sound right, but it was a lot of fun. I wanted that was the most fun for me, and if I get down to the 230 I want to get down to, which I foresee that happening because I'm locked in. I wouldn't mind lacing them up one more time.
Another Battle Royal?
No, maybe
maybe a shot at the title.
No, maybe you'll run a little angle and, do a little Italian tag team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To bring back the old-time Sicilians.
We could be the Sicilians.
Bull Dredd, Mario Mancini, and the Guardian of Chaos as the new Sicilians in honor of Altamari and Albano. Mancini, that's something to think about, but we got to get it by the
We'll get Perez the tag team partner. It'll be the Sicilians against the Latinos.
I like that. Also in the Battle Royal that night were obviously the House of Pain, Karen Bam Bam, who's unbelievable, MLW Caribbean champion Richard Holiday was in there that night too.
Now, Big Daddy, do you know there are different kind of Latinos? Do you know that?
I'm well aware of that, Mancini. Well aware of that.
I know a particular.
Well, tell me.
Oh, Big Daddy would make every ounce of breath leave your lungs.
Really?
That's the kind of Latino I'm talking about.
Muy caliente.
Big Daddy will knock you from here to kingdom come. I mean, the beauty is indescribable. Anyway, let's keep going.
Did you ever watch Caliente on Telemundo or Univision?
No, I was too busy looking at Latino.
Okay. Now, also, Dredd in Paradise Alley, I'm going to run them through because, Dredd, you have appeared on every show since Feast Not Famine.
Before you do that, I just have to say my favorite Bull Dredd match is his debut match with Kenny Roberts because of the way they had to work around that referee situation that they had going on there.
That was a tough referee situation. Now, Dredd, let's speak to that very first match against the flamboyant one, Kenny Roberts, who is a veteran, but we had a rookie referee. There was a little miscommunication. I even got involved at ringside and may have dropped the ball. But let's talk about that first match. And then because we only have about 10 minutes, I want to talk about when you won the IC title and then what's going on with your feud with the Prophecy, Big Jim Anderson.
Well, if I could redo that first match, I would, only for the fact that I'm down 30 pounds since, and I was rusty. But I may have been rusty physically, but mentally, I was all there, and I had to control that match. I had to control the ref. But, other than that, that's the only reason why my own performance, I feel it was far on my end. However, winning the title, and I said to the guys.
Dredd, don't get ahead of yourself, Dredd. Hold on now, Dredd. So you had that with
sorry.
That it's okay. This is what Chaos does. You were in the Battle Royal. Now, at the Connecticut Taco Festival, it was yourself, and this is where you formed the union with Big Jim Anderson, and you had that feud that waged through most of 2019 into 2020 against the Pyramids of Power, but we'll get on to that. You faced them at the Connecticut Taco Fest. You faced the Pyramids of Power at Type 1 to None. You also went up against the Firm on New Year's Retribution with your steady tag team partner, and that would be Big Jim Anderson. But on Jingle Brawl is when Dredd won the Intercontinental Championship against Aladdin. I want you to talk about that championship match against Aladdin and then your tag team championship, your tag team run with Big Jim and the fallout afterwards.
At this point in my career, I mean, I still get the shivers, to be able to win a title and present it and bring prestige to the belt and being recognized, in a great company, But it's never about the title. It's about what a star could bring to the title. It's not about the title making the star. And that's the respect that I feel. I feel so humbled by that, to represent a company and a great title. And, to lead back to the feud with Jim and I feel that there was always a little bit of jealousy from the time I stepped foot into PAPW. I feel I accomplished more in a few months than I think Jim did in how many years he's been there. But that's the difference between being a veteran and, that's, what could I say? That's the difference between being a veteran and knowing the business and paying the dues. Not to really take really much away from him. He got the look, but don't got the brains.
Well, let me speak to this, and I want to ask the owner of Paradise Alley, because it was. I want to know the thought process and the decision making. Mario, where was the thought process? Bull had been in Paradise Alley for about a year. He'd been in tag team matches. We tried to program against different folks. What was the thought process of Bull Dredd being singles competitor after the whole Big Jim incident, and then winning the title over Aladdin in the Pyramids of Power? Who's the
Paul Roma.
Well, break it down to the fans out there, the process of Dredd becoming champion.
Well, it has something to do with psychology. And like anything in pro wrestling, popularity. All right, so now you got a 20-year ring veteran. As I said, when he made his debut, there was a pop. There's a big pop.
There sure was.
Now you got a guy that's been around for years. And you know what? Just like any wrestling promoter that knows what he's doing, when new talent comes in and introduces himself and he's spoken to and he's communicating back, the promoter's got his ears open. Okay, and he's going to walk away and say, didn't like what I heard. Dredd comes in and says, listen, I'm here for you. Use me the way you want to use me, and I'll be more than happy to work for you. And you have the wrestling promoters walking away going, this guy's a real pro. He gets it. He gets it. Oh, just like Williams going up to Roma going, hey, man, I've had this thing too long. I want to drop it. That's a company guy. You know what I mean? So you know how to distinguish those guys. And you know what? You reward them. You reward them for several reasons. That they're an excellent person in and out of the ring. They're good in your dressing room. They know what they're doing in the ring. And popularity. You know what I mean? People, listen, Bull Dredd. Let me tell you how smart Bull Dredd is. All right? Just in case you're wondering how smart he is. I'm sitting in the front, right, at the table, selling tickets. And I went up to Roma after most of the crowd was in. These people came in to buy tickets. I didn't ask them. People came in, paid for the tickets, said, we're here to see Bull Dredd. Then 3 more people came and said, hey,
I heard it.
How you doing? Can I get the $20 seats? Yeah, how many you need? 3. Oh, thanks. We're here to see Bull Dredd. We're here to see Bull Dredd. We're here to see Bull Dredd. I walked over to Roma, and I leaned into his ear, and I said, about 24 people came through the door saying they're here to see Bull Dredd. Okay, so now Dredd sends the message to the promoter that whatever you're doing with me, I'm worth it. Yeah, I'm worth that. You see what came through the door? I'm worth it. I don't have anybody coming in. Every now and then, you see people coming in with Haven T-shirts. You know who they're there to see. That's their family. This is not Dredd's family. These are Dredd's fans coming to see
There's
him.
a big difference. There's a big difference.
There's a huge difference. Huge difference. So he's no dummy. He knows how to send a message to the promoter. You know, if he's talking to his friends 2 weeks before the show and he says, do me a favor, when you go to the show and buy the ticket, tell them who you're there to see. Because you know what? At the end of the day, it's a business too. And Dredd is looking at a promoter going, listen, I'm worth it. And you know what? The promoter's looking back at him going, yes, you are. It's a beautiful thing. You know what I mean?
Well, I want to say this. Go ahead, Bo. Go ahead, Dredd.
But more importantly, though, and I had a big speech, you know, and I told the talent in the locker room, I said, where the fuck are your guys' promos? I was like, why am I the only one doing promos for any upcoming show? I was like, doesn't matter if you're on the show or not. Doesn't matter if you have a spot or not. I was like, promote the show. Get yourselves over. I'm like, if I didn't do a promo, I was promoting my match with Aladdin. I was promoting the Taco Fest. I'm promoting whatever show is coming up. No matter, I didn't know what I was doing. Some of the shows, I didn't know what I was doing. But I'm promoting the show. Hey, this is where I'm going to be. I'm like, use the best tool out there, social media. I was like, if PAPW were to shut down fucking tomorrow, what do you have? What can you send to another promoter? Can you cut a promo on the spot? I've been doing it for years. I cut promos all day in my head. I was like, it's about keeping yourself, what's the word I'm looking for? Keeping yourself
relevant. I said it to the students, Dredd. I said it to the students down Monday night at Mario's class. I said the same thing. You hit the nail right on the head, and that's why you're a professional. Before we move on, because we have to get out of here, fans, listen to me every Thursday night on the Worldwide Dino Costa Show at thedinoshow.com. And I'm going to say this. I want Dredd right now to send out a message to Paradise Alley, the pro wrestling fans, what they can expect moving forward in your career. Paradise Alley, otherwise, as the Intercontinental Champion, and I want you to send out a message. Leave our fans about the thoughts of Bull Dredd.
And let them know what's in store for the next 5 years.
Thank God, Dredd. Thank God. Thank God, because Bull Dredd is going to be one of the premier wrestlers in the NAWA. And I know Bull Dredd has worked in New York, but baby, we're talking about New York, New York. We're not talking about.
I wrestled plenty of times in New York. I got a lot of fans, but you know what?
Yeah, we're not talking about upstate. We're talking about
in the city.
We're talking about the Westchester County Center. We're talking about Manhattan.
Bingo.
We're talking about New York, man. The Big Apple. Bull Dredd is going to make his way.
That's why I'm saying to you, speak to every promoter, every fan base, everyone out there right now in social media. Speak to the promoter. You don't have to sell anybody. Your credentials speak for themselves. This podcast speaks for itself. Your last 20 years speak for themselves. You are a legend. Sell yourself now, Bull, on our way out of here. Episode 69, Season 2. And then we'll let Man see. Go ahead, Trey.
I'm going to leave you with this. I'm going to leave you guys with this and all the promoters and the wrestling fans. As I approach my 20th year anniversary in this business, I love this business. I love performing. I don't just do it for myself. I love entertaining the fans, and I love being old school, telling a story, and giving the fans a money's worth. As I approach my 20th year, my new goal is 25. And I'm in the best shape of my career, best shape of my life, healthy. 4 years ago, I was calling it quits, but you know what? That was 4 years ago. It's 2020, approaching 2021, 5 more years, and I love where I am in this business. It's an honor just to be a part of PAPW. I wish I could turn back the clock and be part of the era that you guys were in. I came in the business in the wrong era. I belong in the 80s. But you know what?
You would have fit like a glove. You would have fit like a glove.
I learned that I am here for a reason, and I know that reason, and I'm here to help PAPW become a greater company than it already is. I'm here to help the company make money, help the students. I want to give my knowledge, whatever I've learned. I want to give it to the fans, to the new fans, to the new talent. I just love this business, and that's what it's about. I mean, I've been treated well over the years, but you know what? It was time to move on, and I'm happy where I am.
Mario, your closing statements on the business, Paradise Alley, and taking us out.
My closing statements are this. I do a lot of joking in the Paradise Alley chat room. with these two particular guys, but I can't express how much love I have for Hakeem Ali and Nick Payne. I mean, they are my brothers. They are my brothers. They're my kids. They are two of the best human beings I've ever met in this business. And Hakeem Ali came up with an idea, and all I can say, fans, is it's going to be a lot of fun. And the minute he told me about his idea, I said, absolutely, without a doubt. Big Daddy, you're going to love it. Dredd's going to love it. Everybody's going to love it. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a long day, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm glad they came up with an idea. I'm blessed to have such good guys in my company that really think of the company and sit there and have ideas. They don't have to. They can just show up with their bag and work and go home, but they care, and I appreciate it. And I love those guys. And it's a brilliant idea. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm not going to say what it is because it's their baby, and I'm going to let them do the poster and post it and make the announcement themselves because it's their idea, and I'm not stealing their thunder. But, thank God for the House of Pain, because as I looked them in the face and said, I can't do this alone, So, of course, by the time it comes up, Mr. Roma will be front and center with his blue suit on and his red cape. He will be front and center for it.
Is there anything you want to address before we get off? Perez is running short on time, as is Chaos. Is there anything you want to address about our head trainer, Mario, that I know has been out there? And,
I don't know how much it has been out there. I haven't seen anything outside of our company.
Well, it was on the Worldwide Dino Costa show. I know that.
Well, all right. Well, I'm going to say this. I love Paul Roma. Paul Roma is a huge part of my life. And I think he didn't think so for a long time. But once we got back together in this, and I started telling him conversations that I've remembered from 36 years ago, I think he realized the impact that he's had on my life. And he's done a lot for me that a couple of times I listened and it worked out really well. Most of the time I didn't, and it didn't. But that's my fault. That's my fault. That's my fault, not his. I love Paul Roma. I love his family. He is a blood brother to me. And, I every day I get up, I thank God. I thank God. I thank the Lord above. That being said, it's not my business. It's Paul Roma's. All I can say is,
of course,
by the time another show comes up, Paul Roma will be front and center, and he'll be doing his usual thing. Everybody gets injured. Everybody has a setback. Everybody has a hiccup, and you know what? I say a hiccup and you might be rolling your eyes, but you know what? You're talking about a person. He's just not from this planet, and he always will be Superman to me. And he's proved that he's Superman over 36 years, and he always will be to me. He's very dear to my heart, and I had a very warm feeling and a very thankful feeling to look into his eyes. So with that, as close as I am to him, as much as I have respect for him, it's not my place. It's not anybody's place but Paul Roma's. So with that, we'll see you next week for episode number 70. Still stay safe. Wear those masks. Dredd, I'll get with you and let you know what the idea is, and I think you'll get a kick out of it. Like I said, it's going to be a long day, but it's going to be worth every bit of it. It's going to be a lot of fun, And there'll be a lot of Mancini weenies and Saban sausages with my brother, Kevin Saban. Another guy I was fortunate enough by opening this company to meet that human being. I mean, it's like being best friends with Sam Elliott from Roadhouse. Being friends with Saban,
the Saban tooth tiger.
He is. That's my brother right there. He's something else, man. I love that guy.
Good
So he's an excellent guy. So we'll see you guys next week. And please stay safe.